Yes. All right, now the question is that open up another, no, don't do that.
Okay.
Just open up.
Okay. Close this out. This one, not this one. So that string is, I'm gonna just lower that. And then I'm gonna put this back to. So we're all set. Let me know if you need anything. Okay. I'm gonna get people in seated. Good. I had to drive all the way to St. Louis, and before Dover, I had my hazard on the whole road. It was brutal on the road. I got here safe though. I was going 45 the whole way. Here's your opener. When it says advanced line, we just select with that. And then when you're done, it'll go to the next. Okay, yep, we're in. All right.
Good morning. I love this close and intimate group. It's a powerhouse group that we have in here, so thank you so much for coming this morning. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Yvonne Deadweiler. I am President and CEO of the Newcastle County Chamber of Commerce. And we welcome you to is this our third edX Talk of the year, I believe? These are edX Talk series that we do throughout the year. We started this initiative last year to inform the business community of different programming, different projects, and topics that we frequently get asked about. So we wanted to really discuss this particular topic regarding safety and economic growth. One of the things that we want to talk about as well is just the resilience in our communities and our business communities. This morning, focusing on essential pillar of that growth, which we are discussing the public safety, the revitalization efforts, and efforts that are leading to real change, measurable economic benefits, and it's all happening right here in Newcastle County. So we want to continue those conversations. Before we dive into the program, I'd like to take a moment to recognize a few people in the room, people who make these events possible. Our board members, I think I saw Jeff Casey from JP Morgan here today. Jeff, if you just raise your hand. Thank you, Jeff, for being here. Yes, you could clap for him. Yes, he's very important. And I don't see anyone else. Am I correct? Okay, great. All right, well, thank you, Jeff, for being here representing the board. Appreciate it. And of course, thank you to all of our sponsors and President's Circle, which they're right here. Your support, of course, today make this event possible, and we can't do the work that we do at the Chamber without your support. Also, I want to recognize two folks from Newcastle County Newcastle County, from the Councilmen Kaneko and Cartier. If you could just raise your hand for me. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. We appreciate your support as well. All right, and I will now turn it over to Elise Bortolato, our Vice President of Economic Development and Emerging Enterprise. I'm going to take my coffee.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Again, my name is Elise Bortolato. I'm Vice President of Emerging Enterprise and Economic Development here at Newcastle County Chamber. And before we begin this really important discussion, I also just want to throw out another recognition. Jeff, with our Director of Economic Development here in Newcastle County, thank you for joining us. So before we begin this important discussion, we're really excited to highlight a local innovation in public safety that's developed right here in Newcastle County. This groundbreaking invention was made possible by the critical support of Small Business Development Center and Delaware's Apex Accelerator. Lindsay, you're here if you want to. Thank you for joining us. So it is my honor to welcome to the stage Jim Sery, who is the inventor and founder of AF3 Inc., American Firefighting Foam. You are Jim.
Got my demo ready. Okay, PFAS, PFAS, perfluoroalkyl substances and polyfluoroalkyl substances. They are long-chain molecules with fluorine atoms attached. They are amazing chemicals and have many beneficial uses, as you can see. They're in nonstick cookware, rainproof jackets, microwave popcorn bags, recently removed, thank goodness, and firefighting foam. These chemicals resist grease, oil, water, and heat. They're called forever chemicals because they don't break down and they stay in the environment forever. Is that right? Oh, nope. The clicker's not working, so. Oh. That is right. No, it's not. Okay. I think that's the 4. That's not right. In firefighting foam, they form a film on burning fuels which extinguishes the fire. It's called AFFF, which stands for aqueous film forming foam. That's right. The fluorine atom tails line up together in the fuel, and their heads float on the surface, and it smothers the fire. It cuts off the oxygen and smothers the fire. This film is similar to the shiny oil film that you see on puddles in parking lots, but it's the opposite. Where oil floats on water, these PFAS molecules float on oil or gasoline or any hydrocarbon fire. They are very effective fire suppressants, but firefighters are exposed to these chemicals and have higher rates of cancer. The runoff from fighting a fire or training with the foam has seeped into the groundwater and drinking water. 2,800 U.S. sites are contaminated in the U.S. PFAS chemicals are found in the blood of 98% of the U.S. and world's population. And for many years, they were considered a necessary evil for firefighting, but the governments have now mandated that they be removed and replaced with safer chemicals. So I founded AF3 with a vision of creating a fire foam that's as safe as water. Oops. Oops, oops, oops. Sorry. All right. A few years ago, I was one of 7 finalists competing for a $2 million Department of Defense grant to develop a firefighting foam that was free of these fluorinated chemicals. I was in Washington giving the presentation, going through my research proposal, and the panel were on their computers kind of seeming not to be paying attention. At the end, I finally stated that my patented polymer could replace PFAS and is so safe you could drink it. So I poured it in the water and drank it. Well, that woke them up. I could tell they were paying attention then. I didn't win the grant, though. It wouldn't have changed the outcome, but I joked that if I had led off with the drinking the polymer, they might have paid more attention. So should I not wait till the end this time? Here we go. It's a powder. It's a powder polymer, and it self-disperses in the water. And it basically, it's an Alka-Seltzer method, so it spreads through the water. It strengthens the bubble structure of the foam and keeps the fuel out. So here we go. So it fizzes, like the plop, plop, fizz, fizz. And so the foam doesn't break down, and the fuel can't enter the foam and break it down. It also helps on a chemical fire. It also helps make foam last for 4 days. So in a forest fire, you can spray it and then leave it, and so create a fire break. I never look forward to doing this because it's very effective on fires, but it doesn't taste very good. It's not too bad. Now, remember, this is just the polymer. It's not the surfactants that go in the foam. I'm not drinking foam like that. So we didn't get that grant, but my motto is there's always a way, never give up. I applied for and got a research grant from the FAA. Oops, did I? Yeah, this is the FAA. Their training, their technical center in Atlantic City. They were developing the new Mil-Spec certification for fluorine-free foam. Congress had mandated that the 12 million gallons of toxic foam at all military bases and all U.S. airports must begin to be replaced with fluorine-free foam starting this October. Over the two-year project, we developed a new foam. Now, this is with a different polymer. This one isn't drinkable. And it was one of the top 2 performing products out of 38 that the FAA tested. This led to us being one of the 5 companies chosen to have our foam go through the certification tests run by the Navy. And so for this certification, this is NRL, Naval Research Labs. They run a series of very difficult qualification tests, 18 fire tests on gasoline and jet fuel. They're run at standard concentration, and then you cut the concentration in half, and that's to make sure your foam works if there's equipment failure and only half of your foam is getting on the fire. So it still puts it out. It has to put out the same in the same time frames as your full strength concentration. Now, if you fail one test, you're out, and that's it. This year we passed all 18 fire tests and the environmental test, and they have one more test to complete next month, and we could be on the qualified products list by August, and be one of the 5 in the world to achieve this. This polymer is a synthesized surfactant polymer. It forms a spherical shell, as you can see, that repels the fuel. Other fluorine-free foams pick up fuel when the stream hits the surface of the fuel. Vapors can infiltrate the bubbles, and they can extinguish the fire, but later the whole blanket will burn because the fuel has seeped into the foam, and actually the whole foam blanket will start burning. And that's called burnback, and that puts firefighters at risk. Our foam has longer burnback resistance because of how long it lasts. All PFAS and fluorine-free foams only last 5 to 10 minutes before they start to break down. Ours lasts 90. Now, this translates into better control of large-scale fires. The Delaware State Fire School in Dover is one of 2 sites in the U.S. that are allowed to run these open burn fire tests, as you see here. They run an 1,800 square foot gasoline fire at a low flow rate of 0.05 gallons per minute per square foot to simulate real-world scenarios. So airports, refineries, and foam manufacturers from across the country go there to test their foam and train their firefighters. And no fluorine foam has passed that fire test until they ran ours. The others had problems sealing the hot steel walls. The foam blanket would then ignite and burn in the middle. And with the mandatory replacement coming, Delaware fire chiefs were anxious and desperate to find a foam that could pass this fire test. Ours is the first and only one to pass this test. It self-sealed the hot steel walls, didn't burn, and didn't break down like the others. I want to switch to another public safety fire hazard that's increasing and becoming more deadly: lithium-ion battery fires. And just like fluorochemicals, these batteries are in so many products we use: phones, laptops, e-bikes, electric cars, ships, planes. It's estimated there are 33 lithium-ion battery devices in each household. And if they are improperly charged or damaged or have a manufacturing defect, they can spontaneously explode. And these battery fires create their own oxygen, so water and regular fire extinguishers will not put them out. An overheated cell will burn and explode and start the other cells next to them burning and exploding. And this is called thermal runaway. Fire departments will use 40,000 gallons of water trying to put out an electric car battery fire, but it keeps reigniting. All this time it's producing toxic hydrogen fluoride gas, 2,000 parts per million, where 95 parts per million is deadly. Some examples: an e-bike charging in an apartment exploded and ignited and burned an entire city block. EV cars have burned parking garages, houses, and ships. Now, some fire departments submerge burning cars in a pool, either a swimming pool or a pool of water, for 3 days to get them out, but they can still continue to burn underwater, as you can see there, and can reignite when removed. Tarps are used to contain the fire until they burn out, but again, they release these toxic gases and put the firefighters and public at risk. So we've developed a special liquid suppressant for these fires. It's called Li3X. The low surface tension and large molecules penetrate and coat and cool the burning cells, which stops the chain reaction and extinguishes the fire. We completed testing at a major car company and a fire science university study and are now bringing this product to market. The graph shows the coating effect maintains cooling after the application period has ended. And that's the blue section with the application period. So it maintains the cooling, and there was no reignition. Now, we are a small startup company right here in Newcastle County, Bear, Delaware. What do you do when you have a superior product but you have no name recognition and no funding? So I always said the science was the easy part, and knowing how to get the company off the ground was difficult and complex. And that's where Apex, Delaware's Apex and Small Business Development Center stepped in. Very helpful. Lou Donetta, Walt Blenny, and Bob Roush helped us navigate the unfamiliar business aspects of getting started. And Bob created a business plan and financial projections. They help with getting funding and learning government procurement process. Very, very important. And I recommend anyone starting a small business to reach out to them for guidance. They have the same desire to launch your business, and they work with you like they're members of your own team. And I'm very grateful for their help and expertise. So thank you for listening, and if anyone wants to try a swig of this, see me after. No. Yuck. Thank you.
All right, how many are you guys impressed by this product that's coming out of Newcastle County? How many? I personally was blown away. Thank you for giving the time to share your story and your product with our community. So with that, I invite our panelists to join us. So as Yvonne stated, public safety is the foundation of our economic prosperity here in Newcastle County. And this morning, we are honored to be joined by our county's top public safety leaders who will share strategic programs, partnerships, and investment that are helping to ensure a more vibrant and prosperous future for our residents and our businesses. And this conversation will be led, you're welcome to, do you want to stay up here or do you want to? Wonderful. This conversation will be led by Brett, who is the Executive Director of Claymont Renaissance Development Corporation. So thank you, Brett. And if you want to advance, when Van goes, you just hit that to advance.
Okay, good morning, everybody. It is a true honor to be here because this is something that I've been really passionate about, and it could be such a broad-ranging subject. We talk about, government investment in economic development and revitalization and public safety. We could be here for a week. So I'm going to try to distill it to a few key points. So a little bit, before we get started, just I want to give a shout out to someone who I've collaborated with since the beginning of the Claymont Renaissance Development Corporation. That's Councilman Cartier. When he got elected, was when we got started, and I've been attached to his hip, whether he likes it or not, since 2004. And I've shown the age. And every once in a while, he has to remind me. It's like, Brett, I represent the entire 8th District, which is not just Claymont, but every once in a while, I'll let him out to do other stuff. But we wouldn't be where we are today without his support. And the key word today is collaboration, because we cannot get anything done unless we work with others, other organizations, elected officials, government departments, other funders. So just keep in mind that word collaboration. So what I want to talk about today is just, I want to touch on a few key things. When I came into this job, I realized early on, and I had a lot of help from an old salt who was involved with revitalization, redevelopment. It said basically, well, he said two things to me. One is, Brett, do not expect government to be the be-all and end-all and take care of this for you. They're not. The best that you're going to get out of government is a little support here and there. And you're going to have to fight for that support because there's a lot of competing interests and a lot of competing priorities. So, and the other thing was, I said to him back in early 2000s, I said, wow, God, you're not going to recognize Claymont in 5 years. You're just not going to recognize it. Because all these ideas and visions that he was talking about, and he put his hand on my shoulder and was like, no, Brett, that's not how it works. We're talking about a generational thing. So when you leave this job, people will still be doing that, trying to get to that goal. So as long as you keep that in mind, don't get discouraged, things will be good. So I've learned patience. I don't always have it, but I've learned some patience. So, so that said, on our panel tonight, and I'm going to let our distinguished panel introduce themselves. We have a lot of folks in public safety, And one odd guy out here, Vandell Hampton, sorry. Vandell and Vandell was one of my first board of director members way back. And he and I just recently collaborated on a project. But Vandell's here to talk about how, sort of to focus on how government support working with nonprofits and the individual communities can really make a difference. And he has some slides here to really show some of that impact. So the rest of the panel is going to be speaking more on different areas of public safety. And so with that, I've lost my notes here. I'm going to put our panelists on the spot. And so I'm going to ask each of the panelists, starting with our Public Safety Director from Newcastle County, Elmer. I'm going to start with him. Please give me a little bit of a background of how you got to this point, and then a little bit about something about yourself. And I'm going to throw out the question. What hobby did you have when you were a kid or a teenager, okay, that's not police related and not sports, that you still do today? Do you still have that hobby today, or is it a hobby you wish you kept up? Could be anything, could be stamp collecting, could be whatever. See if you could try to answer that question so the audience knows a little bit more about you.
A hobby.
Hobby.
Well, I don't know if hiking is considered a hobby, but I've always been an active walker, runner. I mean, I can't run anymore, but when I was a kid, I was a cross-country runner, and I still, to this day, go on extensive hikes, and I still enjoy it.
Great, fantastic.
So I started in the United States
Oh,
Navy after graduation from high school. I'm born and bred in Delaware, actually in the city of Wilmington, and left high school here for the Navy, left the Navy to come on to the County Police Department in 1989. I went from the academy to the colonel's chair, and I retired after 28 years of service, and I worked for the state of Delaware for the last 8 years. And this administration under Marcus Henry has asked me to leave state service and return to the county as Director of Public Safety to work with our chiefs. Our chiefs are the chiefs of police. Obviously, I'm joined by him here today, Leonard, who I also worked with for many years on the agency, and I am inspired by his leadership and his commitment to taking the agency forward. I have the other chiefs, so the chief of medics, as well as the chief in charge of the 911 center, all vital organizations, and finally the chief of the Office of Emergency Management. And all those folks are out there, and the police are often seen, our medics are seen not quite as much as police, but they're all out there doing this job at an invisible layer. You don't know the 911 operators and the folks that are taking those desperate calls, but they are critical, I assure you. And when there is an emergency in Newcastle County and the folks from the Office of Emergency Management respond and coordinate that response, it becomes very critical. So you only need us when you need us, but they're all there, and they're equally as important, because one doesn't work without the other, to your point about collaboration. And I appreciate the invitation today, and hopefully that gives you some insight as to who I am.
Great, thank you. So Vandell Hampton, I never usually use his last name, because when I say to people, Vandell, everybody already knows what Vandell I'm talking about. So Vandell, let's start out with your hobby that you still do, and then tell us about you.
I can't believe you forgot my last name.
I did. Listen, today is my 62nd birthday, and it has, yeah. You know what the worst thing about it was? I think I'm eligible for Social Security now. I thought.
And we'll be sitting there, and you buy a tree, the golf balls will go by, leave, come down from the golf balls, and we're laughing and having a good time. And you know, as an adult, you know how dangerous that was. I mean, you know, things you do as a child. But fishing is the thing that I still do today. Van Hampton, President, CEO of True Access Capital. True Access Capital is a community development financial institution. We do a few things. We work with small businesses providing access to capital, so I'm talking about loans. But we also do technical assistance and business support in helping businesses get started, helping them with business planning, marketing, a bunch of networking events and workshops, etc. We've been around for 32 years. We've been around, 33 years, been around 33 years. What brought me to Delaware was Delaware State University. After graduation, I started with USDA Rural Development, where I financed housing for low-income individuals in rural Delaware and rural Maryland. Did that for 6 years. Went to the city of Chester, managed their small business loan program. Went over to Philadelphia, worked for a small business incubator, helping small businesses in West Philadelphia, primarily minority-owned small businesses, helping them get access to capital, providing technical assistance. And then in 2004, the opportunity arose at then was First State Community Loan Fund. In 2019, we rebranded to True Access Capital. Here we are today. So I've actually been at the current organization for 21 years.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Hampton. Chief.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Patrick Ogden. Grew up here in Wilmington, Delaware. I'm the youngest of 6 boys in my family. I was raised in a public safety family. My grandfather was a fireman here in Wilmington in the 20s and 30s. My father was a police officer in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And one of my 5 older brothers started law enforcement in the Wilmington Police Department back in the 1970s as well. So I kind of grew up wanting to follow in their footsteps. Had an opportunity as a young 21-year-old to be hired as a trooper with the Delaware State Police. I spent 22 years there. Had the good fortune to work with Brett back in 2004 when he came into his role with the Claymont Renaissance Project. And after 22 years, I had an opportunity to work at the University of Delaware as Chief of Police. So I'm honored to be in that role. Delaware law enforcement is really special. I had an opportunity last year to be the first chief from Delaware ever elected to the International Association of Chiefs of Police Executive Board. There's 15 of us that represent 35,000 members in 177 countries around the world. And I have an opportunity to collaborate with chiefs from different states. And when I tell them about the initiatives that we're doing here in Delaware, they're blown away. So it's a great honor to have that opportunity to represent our states. And as far as hobbies, I don't know, I don't have much. I was a wrestler growing up, and I've had the good fortune for the last 17 years to serve the DIA as a wrestling official here in the state. And I'm a big summertime guy. I like the beach, so I like to call Dewey Beach my happy place.
Very good. Chief Campos.
Good morning. Well, Chief, you're too tall to be a wrestler, I can tell you that. That's one of the guys like me. Good morning, I'm Chief Wilfredo Campos. I was born in Puerto Rico and grew up on the city's west side. Graduated from Thomas McCain High School in 1991. At that point, I joined the U.S. Army Reserves. Returned back in 1996, joined the Wilmington Police Department. Went through the ranks. Detectives, community policing, which is near and dear to my heart. In 2023, my predecessor, Chief Robert Tracy, who is now the Commissioner of the St. Louis Police Department, moved on to that department, and I was fortunate enough to be appointed by former Mayor Mike Brzezicki to this position, which is an honor and a privilege to be able to now not only lead this department, but also represent a lot of the folks that I grew up with in the city of Wilmington, specifically on the city's west side. So again, I don't have many hobbies. I have many interests. any activities that I'm involved in, but one of the things that I'm really passionate about is sports. The Phillies, the Eagles, you know, Super Bowl champs. But that's what I'm really passionate about is sports, and I grew up playing baseball, and throughout my younger days, I was a baseball coach to many kids throughout Newcastle County, and yeah, so I still enjoy watching the Phillies each and every night, and thank you for the opportunity for being here and being able to share some moments and some questions that I know are coming regarding community policing and the great work that we're doing here in Wilmington to keep our community safe and also to support business leaders like you all. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Chief Campos. And last but certainly not least, the Chief of Newcastle County Department of Police.
Morning. Colonel James Leonard, Newcastle County Division of Police.
Division.
My story is very similar to many others up here. I'm a lifelong Delawarean from Councilman Cartier's district. I was born in Edgemoor Terrace and remained there until I left for college in York, Pennsylvania. I had a different track through life. I am third generation Newcastle County law enforcement officer, however, but I decided that there was an interest in breaking that cycle and pursued a pre-med track at York up until I met with an advisor, I think my second year, and she looked me dead in the eye and said, "It's not your academics at all, but this is not where you belong. You need to go do what your true calling is, which is law enforcement." So after a quick pivot and a lot of unnecessary classes I've ultimately learned that I didn't need for this job, I pursued criminal justice and accounting at York after my time at Sleazy. I just had to get that in there because some Spartans are at front here. Like I said, I'm third generation law enforcement. Both of my parents and my grandfather worked for Newcastle County, so law enforcement service to Newcastle County is near and dear to my heart. When I was, I followed very similar career paths to the gentlemen that are up here that have already spoken. Patrol work, detective work, homicide. Ultimately, upon receiving a lieutenant's promotion, I decided to take on a different role and responsibility within Delaware's law enforcement community and became the president of the Delaware Fraternal Order of Police during a pretty tumultuous time in Delaware's law enforcement history, right around 2020, 2021, where we saw a large amount of law enforcement reform being put into place. And I wanted the union and the chiefs to collaborate. It's where I formed some great relationship with Chief Ogden, Chief Campos, Chief McCabe, and several others up and down the state, but we worked collaboratively to create one of the biggest, I will tell you, in our generation, law enforcement reform packages that passed 2 years ago in the General Assembly. So currently, I was selected to this position by the Honorable Marcus Henry. I'm the youngest person to ever hold this job. I'm reminded that as I walk into the office on a regular basis, there's a big wall of people that have had it before me, and I don't know whether they looked that old when they started, or they looked that old when they left. But I'm going to get my picture up there now, so that God only knows where I'll be when I'm done. Hobbies, though, I'm a boater. I love being on the water. The beach is not necessarily my thing, but if I can be on a boat in the water, then I'm happy and content.
Great, great. I was looking for something a little more juicy like taxidermy or pastry baking or Barbies or something, but all very good hobbies. So let me, a couple housekeeping things I want to put out there is if we could save our questions to the end, if at all possible, unless you really have to ask during the course of this, that would be great and help things move a little bit quicker. So our first question is, where is our first question? Give me 1 second. Okay. This is going to Chief Ogden to start, and then we will go to the right of the question, the first person who answers the question. So for Chief Ogden, make sure I am in order here. Give me 1 second. Yep, okay. This is under community engagement and revitalization. What role does community policing play in your crime prevention strategy, and how are those efforts evolving? And of course, this includes UD campus students.
So my philosophy on community policing is it's really about relationship building and opportunities to be a mentor. You know, a lot of police departments out there have a community policing unit, which is great, but it really should be a department-wide philosophy. I was very fortunate, I told you earlier, I grew up here in the city of Wilmington, and in those days, all of my Wilmington Optimist baseball coaches, not just my coach, but coaches on the other team were like Wilmington police officers and firemen, and they really were mentors to us kids growing up, and they had the ability back in those days when you were kind of going down the path you shouldn't, to kind of bring you right to center. So I try to incorporate that in the community policing philosophy with the department, and it's all about relationship building. And it doesn't matter what type of policing you're involved in, there's opportunities for community outreach. So when I was a trooper, we mostly handled all the main roadways and shopping centers. So we developed this concept that we called park, walk, and talk. So have the officers go to like Fairfax Shopping Center, get out of their car, and the idea was to go and talk to the store merchants to just, again, to build that relationship. And the philosophy is that if you have those relationships, the store owner or manager is more likely to reach out when they see something suspicious. Oftentimes people don't want to call the police because they think, oh, it's not really an emergency. But if you have those relationships, they feel more comfortable. Conversely, from the policing aspect of it, if you're out on patrol and you know a business owner or a resident and you see something at their property, like say their bushes are blocking their windows or they have a light bulb out or something like that, you're more likely to make those connections and kind of improve that thing. And at the university, we do the same thing. We feel that we're most vulnerable during class change times. I mean, you've all been through Newark. Imagine, you know, you got 20,000 students walking in every direction. You got all that traffic, vehicular traffic coming around. So we instituted the same thing there that we call park, walk, and talk. The idea is you park your car somewhere so that if you do have that criminal element that's riding through Newark, they see a police car somewhere, and then the officer's out on foot somewhere interacting with a student. And the goal during that 15-minute class change time is just to meet one new student and to build that relationship. So, you know, at the end of the day, community policing is really about relationship building and looking for opportunities for mentorship.
Great. Chief Campos.
Everything he just said.
Okay.
Chief Ogden took a lot of talking points, but community policing, to me, it's the most critical part of policing. That's where it all begins. You know, building those relationships with our community. We have, in the city of Wilmington, we have 48 different civic associations now. Some are more active than others, but we make sure that we have an officer and a commander at each and every one of those meetings. And that's really important, and because every different neighborhood in the city of Wilmington is different, right? What's affecting one neighborhood may not be affecting another. And if we try to do one-size-fits-all approach to policing, it's going to fail. It's not going to work. And the most important thing I feel about community policing and having those officers at those civic association meetings is that it builds that relationship, that trust. Because what happens is sometimes the old approach that we used to have is that, you know, we have officers who are answering calls for service and are really busy doing that and doing an effective job. But then we're also asking them to do deal with issues and solve issues with community residents that are long-term, right? Like a vacant house that continues to be going into, or someone dumping illegal items on a city block. And it's a really difficult task to put on that police officer to not only answer 911 calls for service, but also work on those long-term issues. And when someone doesn't get back to that residence or that community that, you know, what we said we were going to do, that we did or didn't do, that's where that trust starts to erode. And that's not what we want to be. You know, we want to be able to work with communities, whether it's a speeding issue, whether it's violent crime affecting the neighborhood, or a burglary trend. You know, we need to go to those meetings and be present, work with our residents, and that's where it all begins. Again, to me, that is the most critical part of policing, is working with our residents, listening to their issues that are affecting them in that neighborhood, and then working on to try to solve them. And that's how we build relationships, and that's how we build that trust.
You're really taking all the talking points. I don't know what they got coming for you, sir. If you look at the community policing, his ultimate goal is crime prevention and relationship building, right? Brett was talking about collaboration. That exists across the board. Collaboration amongst us on how we effectively police. Collaboration within the community so that we police them effectively and efficiently and understand specifically what their needs are and what their wants are out of law enforcement. But from a Pillion perspective, prevention is the ultimate goal and the ultimate measure of success in policing. The only way you get that is with strong partnerships within the community. The only way you get that is with strong partnerships within the community. You can't rely on the community to help you out if the only time that they see you is when you come in there and you respond in for a call for service and you deal with folks at their most vulnerable time, when emotions are high, and when there's just a specific need, and then leave the community and not provide them a service, wraparound services, a constant face that they can see on a regular basis. We too, like Chief Campos, have a community unit that responds and goes to the community meetings. But we charge each and every one of them to be a community service officer so that when they are in the neighborhoods, you know, that they're not, because for your own edification, the Newcastle County Police Department services neighborhood policing outside of municipalities like the city of Wilmington. So domestic related issues, neighborhood related issues, community disputes, et cetera, all fall within our purview. The highways, et cetera, fall to the state police. So our ultimate goal is to be partners within each one of these neighborhoods, and it can't fall to the 6, 7, or 8 folks that we have assigned to a community services unit. It has to fall on each and every one of our shoulders in order for us to be effective and decent partners in the prevention of crime.
Great. Actually, I'm going to change things up a little bit for director's setting. Also, I want to throw out, Vandell, a lot of these are cop questions in a way. So I might bypass you this, but you're still going to have your time to talk about economic development stuffs and go through some of the slides that we have for you. So don't take it personally. I don't want to throw you into the thing of talking about a policing question. So director setting, does your force have enough community policing officers? Do you have the funding to support those community policing officers?
So community policing is a wildly complicated topic. I grew up on it. I came out of the academy with a chief that was new to what was called community policing. But it has a very, very, very broad definition. And I'll get to the question about funding and officers, because it is difficult to understand, even in Delaware, you know, the demographics that our chief is talking about right now. It's extremely challenging for the county police. We have to be nimble. We have 427 square miles. We're giving police service to 578,000 citizens. And as the chief pointed out, our primary directive is that all the neighborhoods. We have all the neighborhoods. Every other major highway is our partner, the Delaware State Police. Every secondary roadway is us. So everybody has to be a community police officer. But the definition is so broad, how do you do that? So I went when I was chief and now as the director, and I'm so proud to say that the chief follows on this messaging. I go to every officer in the police department and I say, treat everyone you come across with dignity and respect. I tell every detective, I say it in every roll call, I say it to every special operations officer. And do you ever have enough officers? No. You never have enough officers. Is funding critical? Wildly critical. That's why we have to use technology. We have to harness it and use it as effectively as we possibly can in every scenario. And I know it keeps evolving, and that gets expensive too. But it is a much cleaner way forward than just saying we need 100 more officers. 100 more officers is difficult for multiple reasons. One, young folks are not interested in service. There are still plenty out there, but all the agencies are vying for them. And so you end up struggling to get people to come to your agency. And what the young folks do religiously, by the way, it's not just the money that they're looking at. They look to see if you have a morale problem. They look to see if you have competent leadership, because they do not want to go to an agency that is struggling with morale. And I can very happily say that the chief and I have only been in position with Newcastle County for the last 6 months. We have a focus on bringing us back up to our authorized strength, which is 415 officers. So when you look at, I'm not picking on you, Chief Campos, but when you look at Chief Campos, complicated policing dilemma, but it's only 9 square miles, and you have hundreds of police officers. We have the 427 square miles. It's really difficult to say, I'm going to assign Officer Setting to an area, and he's going to have this breakthrough moment with, Overview Gardens, and he's going to be their officer. No, you have to have something simpler where that officer knows you're going to be in a lot of neighborhoods today, you're going to go to a lot of domestics. You have to treat everyone with equity. You have to treat everyone you meet with dignity and respect. And I'm telling you that this messaging matters, because we saw on our own agency that window where I was chief, where no one was shot for 4 years. We didn't shoot anybody. And if you think that's an anomaly, the Newcastle County Police shot and killed 8 people in the 8 years before I became chief, and they shot and killed 8 people after I left for the 8 years that I was gone. So there is something to messaging. A police shooting may very well be inevitable, and I'm not suggesting that shootings aren't, defendable. All I'm suggesting is, if the messaging is be careful out there and, make sure you make it home tonight, you're scaring these kids that you're sending out there. You're scaring them, and you're making them think, I have to do something desperate in that moment. And I don't want them to do that unless they absolutely have to. So the message is so critical. Treat everyone you meet with dignity and respect. If they won't let you, and you have to do your job, we will support you, we will back you. But I would rather go and explain to somebody why we had to put our hands on an individual, on a citizen of Newcastle County. I'd rather explain that to our friends at council than trying to explain why we're in a police shooting. So that's community policing, in my opinion. Is it expensive? Yes, sir, it is. But it is critical to having a true and fair relationship with the citizens of Newcastle County.
Thank you. The next question, I'd like to start off with actually Chief Leonard, and then a follow-up from Chief Campos. And the question is, how is your department engaging with youth and to create pathways away from violence and towards positive community involvement or employment? Chief Leonard.
Thank you. Well, our ongoing engagement with youth is centered at the PAL. We have 2 PAL facilities, the Garfield Park PAL, which we staff, and then the Hokesson PAL, which, again, different demographic, but services a little bit more of older youth than our Garfield Park PAL. Additionally, we have another program that's run through Director Setting's office, but has intimate involvement within the police department, called Project Seed. We were slowly learning. Project Seed was founded by my predecessor, and then there's been a lot of confusion about what their ultimate goal is. But over the last couple months, we've really borne down into that and realized that the mentorship that they provide it's staffed by a retired police lieutenant and some other folks, a victim advocate who used to work for us, and another gentleman. And what we're finding is that with our partnership with them, we are able to get into schools, we are able to get into neighborhoods, and I think at last count, there were several hundred youth they were continuing to mentor. The ultimate goal for us there is to have more law enforcement involvement with programs like that. We have an active officers and teams and events at the PAL. We do a lot of stuff with our community services, pop-up play zones. We'll begin those this month as soon as school gets out, where we take our trailer, our facility dog, which is retiring, by the way, I just found out yesterday, so we're gonna need a new one of those, sir. And we go into neighborhoods and we bring games, basketball hoops, we shut down the street, we bring ice cream, we bring food with neighborhood partners, and we give the kids something to do. Not everyone's afforded an opportunity to go to camp. They either can't afford it, transportations, or a multitude of other issues. So we bring the camp to them. The ultimate goal, as we bring ourselves up from the 65 people that we're short, is to have these things on a consistent basis with a team of people that we can assign to specific neighborhoods of concern and get them in there so that they can build the relationships that we expect of them. You know, we're always going to have the bulk of our officers that are responding to calls, but there are going to be a core group of people that the council knows who to call upon, that we know who to call upon, but more importantly, the neighborhood and civic leaders know who to call upon when they say, hey, there's a kid that I see is floundering, he's struggling, can you all provide him some assistance? And it's not one thing that is very important to me, and I know these gentlemen feel the same way, is it's not just policing advice that we're trying to give. It's basically just human compassion. You know, we may not be able to fill, I mean, and we get calls like this, that so-and-so is having troubles, and then what is being reported as a crime and disorderly type situation with the youth. It actually has a lot of rooted issues with the behavioral health issues or hunger or truancy. So making sure that our folks are well-rounded and have the resources that they need to provide resources to the people that we're supposed to serve is one of our ultimate goals.
Chief Campos.
Yes, one of the things we've partnered with JP Morgan Chase, so I thank you, sir, for the partnership. We just started yesterday, and we've been doing this for the last probably 3 or 4 years. We have the Wilmington Youth Academy. It's a 2-week academy where we get about 30 to 35 children, mostly inner city kids. Some of them are from the county. But they go through a rigorous curriculum where they're kind of coming in as junior cadets, junior police officers. You know, they have their physical fitness uniform in the morning. They do PT with the police officers, with about 8 or 9 police officers who are part of our community engagement unit. And then they have breakfast, then they go to class and they learn about de-escalation, they learn about gang awareness, drug awareness, conflict resolution, and things of that nature. So we partner with JP Morgan Chase, we partner with the fire department as well, and they learn about fire safety and things of that nature. And it's been a very successful program. At the end of the 2 weeks, they graduate, they get a certificate, the parents come, the mayor comes, and myself, and we congratulate them. And it's been very successful. On top of that, we also have our school resource officers. We have 8 throughout the city. And then our community engagement unit, again, this is why I think it's so critical. They're going to the schools after school, reading books with the kids, engaging with the kids in a setting where it's not threatening to them, right? And they're seeing police officers in a different light. We're also part of Camp Barnes, where we take inner city kids down to Sussex County and interact with them for 5 days, and they get to learn about team building and the other things that I spoke about. So there's many programs to what Chief Leonard said, Open Streets, Play Streets. Just this past weekend, or 2 weekends ago, we had Open Streets where we partnered with Westside Groves together, Cornerstone West. We shut down pretty much Newcastle Avenue from the Terminal Avenue all the way to A Street. And the point is, I know it's a major highway, but the point is to get the neighborhood to come out and enjoy it. We have a DJ out there, we have moon bounces, we have vendors that come out from the community, small business owners. And it's a great day. It's a great day to not only highlight a different part of our city, but also to highlight our police department, our fire department, and be able to reach those children who are at risk. So again, I could go on and on about a lot of the different programs that we have, but you know, the youth are the ones that we're trying to reach, and especially that range from like 12 to 15 years old. That's the most critical part before we get to you know, driving and everything else. So there are a lot of programs. I know I've had some conversations with Mayor Carney. There's things that we could do better, and there's some things that we're exploring as well. But again, a lot of it is done through the partnerships with folks like you. You know, to public safety director's point, it takes a lot of funding. You can't do things, you know, without money. So those are things that we're exploring. How can we partner with our business community to be able to deliver some of these goods and services to our kids when it comes to keeping them out, you know, when we get in trouble. So more to come on it. Again, I always say we can do better, and we're looking and exploring what other departments are doing throughout the country to see what we can bring here to our city to make keep our city, our kids safe.
Great, thank you. The next question is going to be directed to Vandell, and I'm going to cue him up a little bit, and he has a couple slides to be able to show. And the question is, how are we addressing infrastructure like sidewalks, lighting, facades, to help prevent crime and improve public safety? And I can talk about this from experience. There's not one magic bullet for revitalization and making your community safer. It's a million little pieces. I found that out. And one of those pieces is creating a sense of place. If your community looks run down, a lot of people will treat it that way. A lot of people who might want to do nefarious things feel comfortable there. So that public investment, not just public investment, but actually private sector investment also, is incredibly important. And how do we facilitate that? I go back to something that I firmly believe in is the broken window theory. It's true. Broken window theory is true. So it's a complicated question because a lot of times you're dealing with private properties, individual businesses. But what can be done by government to give a helping hand to create that Main Street, that thriving Main Street? And with that, I know that Vandell can shed some light because we've been working together for the past several years on a major project that he's going to talk about, and also some of the other projects that True Access has done in Wilmington and Newcastle County. So Vandell, I'm going to start, and I'll start with your first slide. Please work. There we go. So if you want to stand up and do it so you can look at the slides, or whatever's best. Perfect, perfect.
So before I get into, you can go to the next slide.
Sure.
Before I get into the slides, one thing that rang true as I listened to all the folks involved in law enforcement, that rings true with my work too, is collaboration and community engagement. I can't do the work, we can't do the work that we do, the economic development work that we do in the community without good partners. We have a lot of great products. I'm going to talk a little bit about them. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the initiatives that we have. But we knock on the door and say, hey, I got a great loan product for you. And people look at you like, who are you? What do you do? But we work with groups like the Claymont Rental Development Corporation, who has relationships in the community. And they open a lot of doors for us. In the city of Wilmington, we actually hire consultants from the neighborhoods who can get into doors we can't get into, so we can bring these resources and make them available to the folks that need it the most. I'm going to talk a little bit about a few initiatives that we've had over the last few years where we've made significant investments in the state of Delaware, particularly in Newcastle County and the city of Wilmington. This first one I'm going to talk about is the Newcastle County Quarter Revitalization Fund, and we're actually just kind of wrapping this up right now. This is actually a partnership with the Claymont Renaissance Development Corporation, with Newcastle County. We actually entered into a contract with Newcastle County about 1.5 years ago, where they provided some funding for us to support businesses along several commercial corridors in Newcastle County. Those corridors were Philadelphia Pike, North Market Street, Route 9, and Route 13. And basically what we did was we put together a pool of funding. We made it available to small businesses. This was grant money, so this was money that does not have to be paid back. Grants up to $10,000. And the purpose of these grants was to, revitalize the quarter, to do facade work, to do signage, to do street work, to paint, things like that. We've dispersed just under $440,000 in the last 1.5 years to some 40 businesses. We've actually leveraged almost $800,000 in additional funding. So the 440 that we put in brought another $800,000 from the businesses, from the private sector. And this wouldn't have been possible without Newcastle County government. And this is an instance when the government came in, they made an investment in the community, and that was leveraged. Not only were we able to provide the loans of the grants to these businesses, We also provided what we call technical assistance. So, businesses that needed help through the application process, we had people who could help them do that. We're wrapping up right now. I'm really proud of the work that we did with Newcastle County. And that's just one instance where, the private sector, the public sector, the nonprofit sector come together and make good things happen in the communities that we serve.
Vandell, I'm sorry to break in. When you talk about the technical assistance, also mention not just help with the application, but actually help with growing their businesses and their business plans. And would you want to expand on that?
So one of the things that we incorporated into this process is each business that we provided a grant to, we offered actually an opportunity to do an assessment on the business. So we brought a technical assistance consultant in who actually would do an assessment on the business. And if the business had future plans, other things they were trying to do, we would actually hopefully bring some resources to help them happen. So it wasn't just about giving the grant, it was also about providing the other support. I didn't say the grants are up to $10,000. We had two different grants. We had a $5,000 grant, and the only thing you had to do to get this grant was actually be a business and be located in one of those corridors. That was it, right? And the second grant was up to $10,000, and that was a matching grant. And that was grants that were over $5,000, and that were instances where businesses may have already been involved in doing something to their property, and we matched that up to $10,000. So that's the support that we were able to provide through this program. We had a program a few years ago called the Pro Neighborhoods Program. It was actually funded by JPMorgan Chase. I see JPMorgan Chase in the front row. And they actually, we partnered with, and it's again, that whole thing about partnership. We partnered with a couple other groups like ours, Neighborhood Partners, which is a group like ours located in Dover, and then Sery, which is a group like ours located in Wilmington. And we focused on 3 communities in Wilmington, the east side, the northeast, and the west side. Pretty much the whole city. I think with only Southbridge, South Wilmington, we focused on, but pretty much the whole city. And through this program, True Access, we focused on economic development, small business development. Sery focused on affordable housing, and Neighborhood Partners focused on community development lending, like facilities lending. And we invested $1.1 million in these communities, created 118 jobs. I know through our lending alone, we leveraged another $5 million. So a $1.1 million investment leveraged an additional $5.3 million. And this was a grant that came through JPMorgan Chase. So it didn't come from private industry, but it came from a partner. And this is the type of catalytic funding that you need to make changes in the community. Next slide. And of course, my slides. Oh,
Oops, sorry. There we go.
They're back again. Give me 1 sec.
There we go.
Now I'm gonna talk about it on my phone so I can see what I'm talking to. Give me 1 sec. Here we go. Next slide. West Side Quarter Revitalization Fund. This was actually a forgivable loan program focused on the west side of Wilmington. This was also funded by JPMorgan Chase. Our investment was $166,000. It leveraged another $1.1 million in investment from businesses located along those corridors. And again, pretty much the same model. This was actually a loan that was actually forgiven. So we would make the loan. There was a caveat that the business stayed in business. They used the money, what they said they were going to use it for, and they stayed in business for a few years. And if that happened, the loan was forgiven. Again, another investment, catalytic investment to revitalize community. This next one, the Wilmington Revitalization Fund, is one I'm particularly proud of as well. This was actually an investment from the state of Delaware. We were able to raise $3 million through the bond bill over a course of several years. And through this program, it was focused on the city of Wilmington. We focused on low-income communities. And it was actually a 3% loan focused on developers who are developing small development projects or businesses who are doing projects that, to support, to purchase or to rehab and to purchase facilities. So it's a low interest loan up to 3%, up to $500,000. And then once the loan, the project was done, we actually forgave 30% of the loan. So it was an incentive for businesses to invest in certain neighborhoods. Through this program, a little under $4 million in investment, 71 jobs. I believe all but one loan, I think there were 8 loans done under the program, all but one loan went to businesses led by people of color. So particularly proud of that. And again, that was an investment from the state of Delaware, you know, which made a huge impact in the city of Wilmington. I'm going to turn around because my next slide. Am I done?
No,
Okay.
no, one more.
And then finally, the Market Street Quarter Revitalization Fund. This is about 10 years ago. This was an $800,000 investment. Came from JP Morgan Chase as well. It focused on Market Street. And this was actually forgivable loans as well. And we did $50,000 forgivable loans to businesses located on Market Street. And just to put some flavor to this, you've all been downtown Wilmington, you know, businesses that we supported. Bardea, everybody knows what Bardea is doing now. We actually made that first investment to Bardea. Stitch House, folks remember Stitch House. Lafia, Kavanaugh's, Greenbox Kitchen. These are all businesses that you all patronize downtown Wilmington. And again, we were able to be involved in these investments in the early stages of many of these businesses. And again, you know, a lot of it came through philanthropic support or support from the government. But these are the types of things that happen when you have catalytic capital and those types of investments to, you know, make things happen. Thank you.
Wait, you have to read a proverb.
Oh, okay. And I didn't write this. Thank you for the proverb. Thank you for the proverb, Brett. One finger cannot lift a pebble. Hopi Native American proverb.
Right.
Thanks for that.
Thank you, thank you. Great. The next topic conversation is going to be technology. And I'd like to start out with Director Setting first. How is your department using data and technology to make public safety efforts more effective? Are there challenges and are there upsides to that technology? And you know what, I'm going to throw in the other question, because I'm tag team with Chief Leonard. Do you see the use of AI, robots, drone technology cutting crimes and making communities feel safer? So it's a joint question for you two, Director Setting.
Thank you. So I'm going to split the difference and take the first part of the question and leave the chief to speak about AI and drones because he, in the 8 years that I've been gone, technology has changed again. In the 4 years that I was chief, before George Floyd, I tried to convince the Delaware Chiefs Council that technology wasn't just important, that cops were going to have to wear body cameras. And I was in opposition with the unions. I was in opposition with the Delaware Chiefs Council. Those chiefs are not there anymore, in defense of the forward-thinking gentlemen that are to my right. And they said, you know, you don't trust your cops. I said, no, I do trust my cops. And I believe putting cameras on 415 police officers proves it. And I know they're doing the right thing, and I want to be able to say, take a look. And if they're not doing the right thing, let's take a look at that. Don't use the old way of policing of, you know, find a problem, circle the wagons and defend it. You shouldn't do that. You should deal with it, and you should deal with it up front with transparency and honesty. And sometimes it stinks. But if you got somebody doing the wrong thing, do you really want them out there? So technology is very important, and you can leverage it, and the body cameras were step one. But I wanted to take it beyond just the fact that there are behavior modifiers on both ends of the lens. I predicted back then that body cameras were going to evolve, and they were going to replace report writing. And they haven't completely, but they have substantially changed how much time we have to spend writing a report, because everything that's on that camera is being downloaded to a back room, so to speak, into a cloud, and it's downloadable to our Department of Justice. It's downloadable to the attorneys that are working a particular case, and it's shareable in certain scenarios with our peers and with our citizens, and it is changing law enforcement. The other technology pieces that I was able to grab onto, and the chief's going to point out in a second here how much that has changed, is I wanted to buy some software, the best in the country at the time, to show where we were going to have problems, to predict where we needed to put police. If Walmart can figure out how many Pop-Tarts they need for a snowstorm on the shelves, why can't we figure out what neighborhood needs cops? So we bought software that analyzed data that was coming in from 911. It analyzed buckets of data from everything from who was in prison to who wasn't. And it doesn't go so far that people's rights are being violated, but it did give us a starting point, and that technology was very successful in lowering crime. When you're lowering crime, and I'm talking about quality of life crime, which is just as important as everything else, but violent crime too. But when you see double-digit reductions in quality of life crime, people want to have their businesses here. People aren't always safe, but they need to feel safe. They need to know that if something happens, we're there to respond. So we had to get technology that would help us leverage the significant, we don't have enough people to cover all of Newcastle County. That's the reality. I'm not trying to scare you, but that is the reality. When you take 400 officers and say, well, what are they doing, 24 hours a day with, well, when you break it down, detectives, special operations, and platoons, each one of those platoons has between 30 and 50 men and women on it. For all of Newcastle County, for anywhere from 8 to 12 hours a day. So you need technology. It must be used. All that being said, I'm going to turn it over to the chief now because technology has changed again. And that general look at crime data to predict things is now, it's past. That chapter has closed. We don't even use that software anymore. It's much more advanced. And I'm also going to let the chief touch on the drones because that is a direction where we need to go if we're going to continue to police this much property with this amount of police officers. We're going to need drone technology. And I don't mean after something happens. I mean preemptive. It has to, these drones have to be out. The technology currently exists for putting these drones up in active areas while we're looking at that drone feed. Chief?
Thank you, sir. From an analytics perspective, we talk about the data analytics software. There's been a large paradigm shift in the analysis of data and how we effectively police. It's more, the modern model is offender-based monitoring, right? What we're finding is a certain percentage of the population commits the majority of the crime that we have, and they're not held by a geographic area anymore. So the modern crime analytics software and all do a lot of associations and offender associations and links and nexuses to each other, which help us to actually target individuals most likely engaged in criminal activity. Now, there is some overlays that are specific neighborhood-based analytics, but what we're finding is, the same folks that we're dealing with out in the county stealing cars are going to Chief Campos' jurisdiction and conducting shootings, vice versa, stealing cars in the city of Wilmington and coming out and engaging in violent activity out in the county. So coupling that bit of technology along with different camera-based systems, we're able to build associations of youth engaged in group violence and address that through a multifaceted approach. From an AI perspective, everyone knows AI is scary, and we saw a presentation at the Chiefs Conference last week, and it actually made it even more scary for me. But as far as applications in law enforcement at this point in time, I think that there's too many unknowns and it's too misunderstood for us to use it. There are some places for it. We've looked at some technology that uses AI to examine every body camera interaction that we upload to the Axon cloud. And right now we do random audits, as I'm sure that these gentlemen do as well, to ensure that compliance obviously with usage, but also compliance with policy and procedure. If you overlay this one particular bit of software over to every body camera interaction that's out there, it picks up things, whatever kind of flags you put in it, excessive use of profanity, raised voices. It basically becomes an internal audit checker where our folks aren't necessarily randomly picking several of them, as all of our supervisors are instructed to do on a monthly basis, and it's using this AI software overlay to examine those things and then email the supervision to take a look at the body camera interaction and determine whether or not there's retraining that needs to occur or the policies or procedures are met. You know, great technology, but the newer the technology is, the more expensive that it is. And all these things are almost slightly out of reach, and before where we would rely on grant money from across a multi-faceted approach, it's just difficult to get grant money for specific things, especially with unknown things like AI. So we're looking at other funding sources and then looking to see how sustainable the software is with the way that AI grows. From a drone perspective, our routinely, I know Chief Campos has several folks on the statewide drone task force that are looking at different avenues to how we utilize drone technology within Newcastle County and the state of Delaware. Right now, it's reactive. If we need to put a drone in the air to monitor civil unrest, we put a drone in the air to look for a missing child. They're all reactionary deployments. You know, our drones go up for every crisis management group deployment, but they're not proactively being used like they are in some other jurisdictions. You know, there's a program out there through not just Axon, but Flock, as well as several other companies that drones as first responders, where instead of dispatching an officer to a particular scene, parking complaint or something of that nature, they dispatch a drone that can analyze the data with the communication specialist and the pilot on the other end to say, hey, does this really need law enforcement response? Or, you know, if it's a parking complaint, can we look up who the owner is, call them and say, your car's illegally parked, can you move it? That's a very basic use of it. Critical incidents, shootings, et cetera, they can be deployed and have eyes on the ground, or overhead, excuse me, much quicker than we can get an officer there that's going to provide real-time data to the responding officers that ultimately could help us in situations where, you know, deadly force may not be necessary. If we're overhead of a scene and we see that the person's armed with a gun, or they threw a gun, or they're hiding a gun, there's a multitude of uses for it. It's just getting the department caught up with that technology, getting our policies and procedures built, and to make sure that we're comporting with privacy laws. That's one of the big issues that with regards to drones. You know, once flying above your house, it causes you, because I'm concerned, you know, it's going to cause you more concern if you know that it's owned and operated by the government and the police. I mean, you saw what happened in New Jersey, you know, whatever that was, because I don't think we ever figured that out. But look how much unrest that caused. If you know they're operated by the police. So these are all things that we have to consider before we even begin to venture down that road. But there is definitely uses for it, especially in the southern part of our county, where we can get drones to areas much more rapidly than we could actually get law enforcement officers. But like all things that we've talked about today, because it's new technology, it's very, very expensive. Just to, for instance, the one rapid deployment drone that would be placed it's $400,000 a year on an annual contract, and that's just for one of them. It can only cover a certain amount of square footage. So finding the best bang for your buck from a placement perspective is important, but also making sure that it's sustainable and it's serving its purpose.
Great. So what you're telling us, there'll be no uniformed cyborgs at the next police academy?
No.
Okay.
Stick to the regular humans for now.
Okay, great. Our last topic is perception, and this is something that I had to work with in Claymont. You know, Claymont has that reputation of being a little rough and tumble, and you know, I'm not going to use that monster term. I'm trying to retire that for our residents, the Clay Monster. But perception is an issue, and that we've had to work with. Looking at the data, at least for Claymont, is the data did not represent the reality. I mean, the data did represent the reality, but the perception was much worse. So my question for whoever wants to take this on the panel is, and we touched on it a little bit, how do communities change their reputation? I'd like to know. I haven't found that silver bullet yet, but you know, what would you suggest for communities who want to revitalize and to do economic growth? What would be the first thing that you would do?
I'll jump on that first, because I can tell you from a policing perspective, perception is important. So I mentioned earlier I grew up in a law enforcement conversations about, when there was civil unrest in Wilmington and deploying the National Guard, support for police was low. And when I started in the late 80s, support for police was high. And then out in LA, Rodney King happens, O.J. Simpson happens, nobody likes the police again. Fast forward a few years, 9/11 happens, everybody loves the police. Then we go to Ferguson and George Floyd, perceptions through in the basement again. So as a result of that, Colonel Leonard mentioned that back in around 2020, he started as the FOP president. In 2019, I assumed the role of president of the Delaware Association of Chiefs of Police. And I always thought I was a dedicated and hard worker. I've never worked so hard in my life in working on changing that perception. So one of the things at this point in my career that I'm so proud of is the collaborative efforts of working with Colonel Leonard and the FOP and representatives from the Delaware State Troopers Association and representing the chief to work with the bill sponsors to sponsor two bills, House Bill 205 and 206, that are basically aimed at perception. We changed a lot. So one of the ways to have community trust is to be transparent and to be accountable. So I'm not going to go into all of the things that are in the bills, but two of the big things from the accountability perspective is, police departments have to have the right policies, procedures, training, and supervision in place. And one of the things that created in those two House bills was to make sure that every agency across the state is state accredited so that we're ensuring that we're doing the right things. Transparency is another huge piece. Colonel Setting talked about the body-worn camera program. I'm proud to say that collectively between the FOP, the DSTA, and the State Chiefs Association, we worked with our legislators to find funding to put a body-worn camera on every officer in the state and to create a statewide repository, because that's the expensive piece of it, to have that video archive. And then again, as I mentioned, perception's not great. People don't want to be a police officer. We created, and we got some funding together to create a marketing campaign for Delaware law enforcement and to create a common application so that when a young person is interested and they don't know where, like me, I always wanted to be a Wilmington police officer, but when I was turning 21, they weren't having a class, so I applied to the county and the state. A lot of young kids do that. This way, students today don't want to go in with a pen and fill out 35 pages of paper at the county and then go to Troop 6 and do the same thing, and go to Wilmington and do the same thing. So through this app, they can do it all on their phone and apply to every agency across the state. So long story as I'm getting at is that perception matters. We got to build that trust. You got to have some type of network to get your all the great things that you're doing, because again, Brett, I look back about I think the councilman said that it would be a lifetime of work. When I go through Claymont, and I worked in Claymont a lot, I don't recognize it. I mean, I think you did a tremendous job. Speaks volumes. But oftentimes, if you're not somebody, say you're somebody who grew up in Claymont and you moved to the beach or whatever, how do they know what you're doing in Claymont? So you got to have that networking piece. None of us are comfortable, I think, with bragging about the great work that we're doing. So when you're doing great work in a community, I think you need to be braggadocious. Get out there and figure out a way to get your message out there so that people know all the great work that you're doing.
I give all the credit to the politicians. It's just easier that way. So does anybody want to say anything more about changing perceptions? I'm sure Chief Campos, you think about that a lot.
Yeah, I just want to add, marketing. Just like every successful business organization, there's an audience. If you don't have a great marketing program or department, most often not, it's going to fail. Right? Your business is not going to do as well. And I think as a police department, we have to start looking at ourselves as more of a business, as so much as a government entity, right? When we put out press releases of all the great work our police officers are doing, they're saving lives and delivering babies and everything else, that doesn't get published. And we have really no media, no way of putting that information out there. But when we do one stupid thing or something in the heat of moment or when emotions are high and things are going on, that gets highlighted. And that's the message that's driven out there. And I think to Chief Ogden's point, we need to show our young people that this is a noble profession that we can come back to and do. But we have to start, as police leaders, marketing ourselves a little bit better, a lot better, I should say, because of the great work our police officers are doing each and every day. Most of the public doesn't see that. I read it each day. I wake up every morning and I read the duty reports that come out and the great work that the officers are doing throughout the evening of the lives that they're saving, the guns they're taking off the streets and everything else. But you all don't see that. And that falls on us as police leaders to be able to market that, to be able to share that information. You know, some of us still think that putting up a billboard and saying we're hiring police officers. No one's reading billboards. You know, everyone's driving down the highway looking at their phones, right? No one's looking at the billboard you just spent $5,000 on, and you're thinking you're reaching young people. No one's doing that. So, you know, with Chief Ogden and the other chiefs and the director and everyone across the state, we came together and said, how can we do things better as a state? And Chief Ogden talked about the common application. It does work. You know, using social media, using the what's the term when people are sometimes when you're talking about a vacation in Aruba and you get about 60 messages on your phone saying here's a trip to Aruba, and you're like, how did that phone know I was talking about this? So we have to start using technology. We have to start thinking a different way as police leaders on how we can attract young people and anyone, actually, I should say, to this organizations that we're all running. And be able to market ourselves a little bit better. So when we look at what you all are doing and your successful organizations, that's how I'm starting to look at our police department, is how can we market ourselves better so that people can see the great work that our police officers are doing in our communities to get folks back into this profession, whether it's Wilmington or Newcastle County or anywhere else in the state. That's what we need to do. And I think marketing ourselves, and that's something that I know I'm talking to my team about, is how can we hire civilian personnel to come in and be our marketing team? Because you know, us as police officers, we're horrible at that. You know, we sometimes hire public information officers and we say go out there and deal with the media, and some of our officers don't have any type of training in that. And even when they do get the training, it's really difficult. And by the time they do get the experience, they move on to another promotion or something else, and then we're having to train somebody else new. So marketing is the key as we move forward into the future with technology and AI and everything else.
Great, thank you. I think we're going to wrap things up now with questions for our distinguished panel here. So I'll put out something to the attendees today. What did we miss here? What would you like to see as business people for them to focus or to take back to their respective governments and say, listen, we heard this from a group, this is what we would like to see. So, and before I forget, can we talk afterwards? Because you're like the JP Morgan guy. Okay. So, anyway, so I will, actually, I saw your hand first. If you would stand up and say who you are, who you're with, and then ask your question. And direct it to whomever you want to direct it to.
All right. Hello, everyone. Hi. Thank you guys for being here. Thanks for the time. Really appreciate it. My name is Josima Cooper. I'm here with Blue Blaze Associates.
I'm sorry, can you speak up a little bit? I'm sorry.
My apologies. My name is Josima Cooper. I'm here with Blue Blaze Associates. This is my mentor, Ms. Wendy Scott here. She's been my mentor for a number of years, so I got invited to this event by her. Thankful that I get to be here. I appreciate you guys all being here. Appreciate your time. Something that I feel like we missed a little bit, we touched base a little bit on the broken windows theory. But I feel like that's something we really should dive into, especially with the center city of Wilmington. I'm not too familiar with all of Newcastle County, but specifically with Wilmington. So just so we all understand exactly what the broken windows theory is. The broken windows theory is just putting a connection between neighborhoods that have more littering, broken windows, buildings, abandoned buildings, broken windows, graffiti, things like that. And it puts a connection between that and the likelihood of more serious crimes, right? So simpler said, signs of disorder invites more disorder, right? So when you see a house with broken windows and it's left unrepaired, it gives the appearance that there's no one in charge and there's no one in control, right? And no one cares. So I hear a lot of things about the investments that you're doing and a lot of different things on Market Street, like North Market Street and like, Brodea and the Green Box Kitchen and everything. And those things are really great. But if you're looking to solve the problem of the more serious crimes or targeting the youth more so, speaking from the youth, we don't go to those places, right? Especially in the impoverished communities. So it's great what you're doing, but we don't get to see that, right? A lot of our families can't afford that, or we just don't know about it. So the big investments you're making into the big businesses and stuff, those are great, but they do not affect the youth community, right? So if you want to handle the problem, you want to target the troubled youth, the impoverished communities. We go to the corner stores, right? Or on the basketball courts, right? The parks. So I feel like I want to ask you guys, what investments are being done there, right? As far as in center city communities, things that the youth are actually seeing. Like the Common Act. The Common Act's great, right? But you don't know about it unless you go online and look at it, right? We're not looking at, like you said, we're not looking at the billboards and things. Like the things that you guys are targeting that I hear a lot about are not things that we're going to see because these are not places that we go. These are not things that we frequent. This is not things that they have money for. So it's like, I feel like the investments need to be made more into the center city, right?
So our organization primarily focuses on LMI communities, low-income communities. So we've done a lot of work in Center City, but we've also done a lot of work on the west side, West Center City, the east side. If you look at now what's happening, I don't know what part of the city you live in, but I don't know when the last time you've been on the east side, but it's phenomenal the development that's going on. You drive around the corner, there's houses going up for home ownership. So, it takes money to happen. It takes folks focused on it, like JP Morgan Chase, they support our work, Newcastle County, the state, but most of the work that we do is in LMI communities. And again, it takes time, but I would point you to the east side. I don't know when the last time you've been there, but my daughter just moved on the east side. She's on Bennett Street. She's in a brand new house, looking to buy it in a few years. And that's the kind of stuff that's going on. I got to give a lot of that credit to Mayor Brzezicki's administration and a lot of funding that came through from the federal government through Harper and that stuff. But there are things going on. There are groups out here that are doing that work, and we're always looking for other ideas. I think one of the things that was mentioned earlier by the folks about perception is getting the word out and letting folks know. And I think there's sometimes a disconnect because we may not be using the right channels to get out to the folks, who need to hear about what we're doing. But I'm happy to talk to you. We're interested in supporting the communities. I mean, that's our charter. 60% of our work has to be focused in a low-income community or to support a business led by a people of color, person of color. So I think it gets back to perception and the levels and channels of communications we use to communicate on what we're doing. Does there need to be more? Absolutely, more needs to be done. But there are things going on in the community.
I appreciate that.
Great. That was a great question. Thank you.
Thank you. Something.
Sure.
I also feel like it touched base on what Chief Campos said about making sure that we have that trust in our, in our policing in our communities, and also, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Right, just lost my train of thought. But making sure we have that trust in our communities, and also the marketing. Yes, the marketing. I feel like with especially Center City, the marketing is kind of outdated a little bit. Like we don't use the proper channels that the youth are using, especially with like social media and stuff. But just like how you said, you'll talk about Aruba, and the next thing you know, it trips to Aruba on your phone. We kind of don't use that, and I feel like we definitely need a lot more of that. The social media or the community outreach, or like how you said they do the park and walks or the park walk and talks. A lot more of that in center cities.
I was just going to mention it, Chief Campos, that there's a group that we use called Influencers Lab, which is a local media company, and they do a lot of work for Delaware State University. They've done some work with some politicians. But if you're interested, they can get the word out on the street. Again, it's perception. And if you're interested, I can connect you with Nudie Felton and Malcolm Coley, who run the group. And they're doing a lot of great work, you know, and starting work. I've been working with them for 4 or 5 years. They're actually, you know, one of my vendors, and, you know, they come in and they advise me on, you know, how to reach the community and you know, how to direct our marketing messages so it can hit the, you know, folks that we need to hit. So if you're interested, I'll hand off the contact information.
Great. Mr. Morgan.
Jeff Casey from JP Morgan. First of all, thank you all for all that you do. I think the stress that you take in as a person and a human being and dealing with what you deal with every day, I don't know how you do it. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I'm sure I speak for a lot of people here in the room, for everything you do and the teams that you manage to do every day. AI. I was Chief Campos. I was in a little fender bender right on Lancaster and Union, that little S turn coming up. I got sideswiped a little bit on Friday afternoon. One of your police officers, I forget her name, phenomenal. What a just a great person, handled everything with professionalism. I'll send you her name. She was fantastic. But kind of a light bulb went off when we were talking about AI. There was a camera on one of the buildings, Ready Auto sells there. And, you know, the gentleman who hit my car said, no, you hit me, and I know you hit me. It was a whole back and forth. Well, I went in to get the footage, and the gentleman couldn't afford, he didn't want to pay for the service month over month. So with all these cameras, personal cameras, is there a volunteer program that if I'm a homeowner, that I can give my IP address to the county or to the city, have access to that camera? And or is there a camera program if I'm a hotspot in town and I live on the corner of some place, things are always happening, accidents, whatever. And I ask the city for assistance to pay for that subscription and or even maybe a camera. Is there $400 or $500 a year all in? There may be a cheaper way to do it. I don't know.
Yeah, the last question is probably not. The funding for the city to be able to pay for it is just too expensive. But there is software out there that we're looking into where I wanted to touch on this earlier, but the technology part is we have to learn how to put all this technology that homeowners have, like ring cameras. Just this past week, I had two council folks send me a ring camera video of someone who broke into a home, right? We did start about 1.5 years ago a portal where residents can submit their ring cameras and any other cameras that they have to the police department anonymously so that we can see what's going on, and then we'll call them back and say, hey, this is what's going on, without having to get into the weeds. Some folks want to provide that information, they just don't want to file a police report. So there is software that we're exploring out there to be able to monitor these IP addresses, but it'll have to be something where we have to have an agreement with each and every homeowner to be able to access that. I know with Axon, there is software out there that they will do it. Axon is the company that does the body cameras and our tasers. It's a very successful company that has a lot of technology. They can probably pretty much give you anything that you want, but you have to pay, obviously, a hefty sum. But there is software, to answer your question, there is software out there that will allow that. It's just paying for it. It's a difficult part.
Thank you.
Joy, another question? Yes, ma'am. I'll state your name and your affiliation, please.
Yep. Good morning. My name is Edie Sika. I am owner of Creative Image Brand Photography. First of all, just a comment and then a question. Comment, thank you so much. I have seen and experienced what community policing does. I'm a resident of the Cool Spring neighborhood in Wilmington. Before he was chief, Captain Campos, when he was Captain Campos, he was our community officer. And I guess as a business owner, my business is located in my neighborhood. My husband started a church in our neighborhood 15 years ago. We have poured our hearts into that place, and it really matters. It matters when our officers show up. It matters when they're consistent. It matters when they come to neighborhood meetings month after month and deal with crazy neighbors who have complaints and all of those things, but we really, really, really appreciate it, so thank you. Question, I mean, we talked about perception and that kind of stuff. What can small business owners do to help with that in the city? Businesses and I guess neighborhood associations too. Like our neighborhood has hosted different, like, we love the police picnics. Is that helpful? What is helpful?
I think it's the same approach as we have when it comes to civic associations. The residents coming together for a common cause to deal with whatever issues are going in those neighborhoods and make us aware of the situations if our officers aren't aware already. I think when it comes to small businesses, it's the same kind of approach. You know, coming together, banding together, and using the combined resources that you all have to have a bigger impact and a bigger voice. I think when we go at it alone, it's difficult because it's, you know, we have many businesses throughout the city and a lot of them are small businesses, but if they each approaches with their own individual issues and problems, when you start looking at it, it's probably the same issues that everyone else is having. We're just not having that conversation. So I think just forming a coalition, I think, together, whether it's on the west side of Wilmington or the north side of Wilmington or the east side or Center City and the riverfront, I think it's the approach that I would take. And it's easier for us to be able to go to one meeting for a small business coalition meeting as opposed to trying to manage, you know, 150, 200 different businesses who are calling us.
Great. We have time for one very quick last question if everybody else.
I actually have a question. Again, thank you so much for being here today. It's, you know, I think I want to just echo what Mr. Casey, Mr. Morgan did mention, but just thanking you for your service and everything that you do to keep our county safe. But one of the things, this is more for Chief Ogden, with the national unrest and the uprise in LA, has the department or any concerns, and maybe this is for everyone, from the business community, as the business community may have a concern of, you know, any, you know, demonstration or anything that might occur here in our county or here in Delaware? Have you seen anything? Have you heard anything from the national standpoint of things that maybe we should be concerned with?
Yeah, I think the first thing is again, it goes back to this whole concept that we've been talking about all day with collaboration. I think that, you know, first off, we need to have the intelligence gathering information out there to know when things are going to pop up, and when they do, we need to do the outreach to figure out who the organizers are. I mean, I'll give you just a brief example. Like on campus, I don't want to say all the time, but we have demonstrations are regular. So, you know, when we do those, the role of the police is to basically be like an umpire at a baseball game. So, you know, if you've seen at the beginning of a baseball game, the umpire pulls out the captains and they go over the ground rules, and police officers need to be proactive in that when you have these events, to talk to the organizers and say, hey, we're here to protect everybody's First Amendment rights and make sure things that are safe. And, you know, we want you to have a successful event, but we will not tolerate, you know, destruction of private property, you know, hurting individuals, those kind of things. So I think if you set those ground rules up, that helps. The challenge that we run into in policing, and I think you're seeing this out in LA right now, is there's groups out there who fund these protests. You have people who, and I'm sure you saw it in Wilmington a few years back, you have people that aren't even from here and they're being paid to come in and create this disruption. So when that happens, I think then you need to be more proactive and go on we need to identify those people who are here to cause destruction and kind of get them out of there as soon as possible. So I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in, but collaboration is certainly the key, doing the intelligence gathering, setting the ground rules, and when you do have those people whose sole intent is to be arrested, let's go and arrest them before they cause mass destruction.
With that, I would like to invite Elise back up here, and just for my own part, I want to thank the panelists, and it was really an honor letting me moderate it, and I only brought up Claymont a couple times, so Thank you.
I'll be sitting next to JP.
All right, can we thank our speakers again who are truly dedicating their lives to save ours? And I personally found it really powerful that so many of you are actually from Newcastle County. And I really think that you understand our neighborhoods, and I think that brings some depth to the work that you guys are doing. We also would, when we talk about marketing, I hope you see this as a marketing opportunity to really showcase the work you're doing. I also would say the power of people, so like making sure that you use your residents to help share your message, because then it gets out to their networks and communities. So you'll see that there's power in making sure you're helping to make it easier for them to share what you're doing to their networks. And I just want to again thank everyone for joining us today. I wanted to also give a shout out to Senator Carper's office for joining, or Coons, my apologies, Senator Coons' office for joining us today. And again, thank you again to our speakers. And I would love to take this moment to invite you to our next event. Our next event is the State of the County, where we really provide updates on pressing issues here in Newcastle County, and also opportunity for us to brag here in Newcastle County about what's going on. So we have the state of innovation, healthcare, finance, and manufacturing logistics. So we hope you join us on July 15th. And lastly, thank you to our members. And if you're not a member, we encourage you to learn about what membership can do for you and your business. So here, feel free to use the QR code to learn more. And thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful day.